The New Age of Confusion. St. John the Philosopher here. This is the second video in a series where I look at three worldview categories as a sort of long explanation of how I came to my personal philosophy. The first video, linked in the description below, took a broad view of atheism. Now, I know some of you might have taken issue with how I handled it, but make no mistake, I'll be making more videos in the future addressing atheism. Stay tuned. But for now, we're going to continue with a brief examination of New Age spirituality. I hope your chakras are aligned. Things might get a little strange.
And here we go.
Have you ever encountered someone that says they are spiritual but not religious? Well, whether they know it or not, their outlook falls into the wide and often difficult to define world of New Age spiritualism. Influenced by Eastern philosophical and religious traditions such as Buddhism and Confucianism, New Age spirituality is almost the default position of those that believe in the existence of a spiritual reality outside of the material universe, but don't really adhere to the doctrines of any particular form of a religious tradition. While there are varied beliefs and practices that can fall under the umbrella of New Age spirituality, it does have some unifying elements. If you remember from the previous video, worldviews are based around answering the four big questions. Where did I come from? Why am I here? How should I live? And where am I going when I die? These constitute the essential elements of origin, meaning, morality, and destiny around which we structure our thinking. So let's take a look at how it applies to New Age spirituality. Where did I come from? Most adherents of New Age spirituality believe in a sort of universal oneness. They share with atheism the understanding that everything is composed of the same essential stuff that made up the supermassive singularity that exploded into the universe we see before us. But unlike their materialist counterparts, New Agers extend that unity of substance into a parallel unity of spirit. An integral component of New Age Theosophy is the idea of divinity. And though the precise understanding of the divine may vary, it's generally conflated with an ultimate source from which all things originate. Also called the universal principle, primal stream, or ocean of oneness, it isn't to be confused with a monotheistic concept of God. Instead, it represents a sort of holistic energy that links everything in the universe on a higher plane as the seat of consciousness and love. Yes, it's complicated, just go with it for now. In any case, the short answer is we come from the ultimate source. Why am I here? As emanations of the ultimate source, humanity is part of the oneness of an ever-changing universe. Everyone, therefore, carries a divine essence that seeks to evolve, not only physically, but spiritually. So in one manner of speaking, the purpose of life is personal evolution.
It's time for an evolution. A bevolution.
That sounds expensive.
Oh, it will be.
Towards what exactly is known only to the individual. Since each of us is divine, we are our own final authority on spiritual matters. There's no one true path. Everyone's own ideas and experiences are equally valid. Oddly enough, here's where New Age spiritualism and atheism find some common ground. Because in both worldviews, each person gets to decide their own purpose for being. As we discussed before, that can get...
You are your own rainbow. Wow. That's really insightful.
Dicey. How should I live? Because New Age spiritualism has no singular definition of life's meaning, and its holistic view of the universe rejects the classical moral framework of good and evil, a unified set of ethics is pretty much impossible. While the typical New Ager tends to look at organized religion as restrictive dogma that stifles individual growth towards the true self, New Age spirituality's lack of dogma is precisely why no moral code derived from it carries any objective value. Certainly, as a relatively recent product of Western culture, most adherents hold to the basic traditional ethical precepts we all recognize. But there is often little philosophical connective tissue between New Age moral practices of any stripe and the New Age understandings of origin and meaning. Because of the belief that we are evolving emanations of an evolving universe, one would think Darwinian evolution could provide some sort of ethical framework as it does for some atheists. But New Age ideas of spiritual and physical evolution can be seen as fairly open-ended, whereas natural selection has the end goal of producing organisms that succeed at individual survival and the proliferation of the species at large in a given environment. New Age evolution has no particular goal. Without any solid criteria to ground ethical consideration, the New Age moral code is left drifting on their ocean of oneness. Many adherents to New Age philosophy will judge actions and situations as positive or negative in regards to spiritual growth, even though they cannot reference a particular standard by which to gauge such a thing. While this rarely leads to violations of generally universal standards of behavior, like atheism, it leaves a gaping philosophical hole that has no hope of ever being filled. Where am I going when I die? Reincarnation is probably the most common belief I've encountered among New Agers, where, upon bodily death, the portion of the human soul that carried the incarnation's personality disappears altogether, and the divine higher self passes on to the next life. Somewhere in there is also the idea of karmic justice, too. Karma is basically a spiritual bank account where positive deeds are credits and negative deeds are debits. Take note, that's positive and negative, and not good and evil. They're different, somehow. While it seems intuitive that you'll want to end this game of life with a positive balance in your karmic record, there's not necessarily a concept of who's doing the bookkeeping, what positive or negative balances really mean in the end, or even how words and deeds are counted to begin with. Do you get +5 karma for calling your mom on her birthday, but -5 for neglecting your cat? How much is a life worth? Does a doctor get +1,000 for every life saved, and a murderer gets -1,000? Can a successful doctor go on to kill one fewer people than he saved and still be counted in the positive column? How do you do the karmic accounting for a serial killer that kills serial killers? The alternative New Age idea is a form of annihilationism, where your existence as an individual ceases to be as your soul is reabsorbed into the universal consciousness. You croak, and then poof, you're gone. Of course, this begs the same question as its atheistic counterpart. If we all end up in the same place in the end, what does any of this other stuff matter? I can only describe New Age spiritualism as weird. It lacks any of atheism's attempted appeals to logic and evidence, and in its universality leaves itself open to infinite dimensions of thought, which ultimately makes it nonsensical. Typically, when evaluating the components of a worldview, I try to assess how well the pieces fit together. But the pieces of New Age spiritualism don't even seem to be for the same puzzle. Add to that the many pagan practices and beliefs that have neither philosophical nor evidential grounding, and I'm just left scratching my head, wondering how anyone can function under this worldview. Those glasses just leave me cross-eyed. Tell me what you think of this video. What do you think about my analysis of New Age spiritualism? What is your worldview based on? Discuss in the comments. In the meantime, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for more videos on religion, culture, and politics. That's all for today. This is St. John the Philosopher. Goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you in another video.